Okay, this is how to use the data team's spreadsheet. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you've already created your common formative assessment. It should not be an assessment that is already made for you. It's something that you and your team create together. And you want to have it no more than 10 questions. 10 is just a nice round even number. Once you do that, you're going to open up your data team minutes and you're going to type in your subject here. So I believe it would be math, and then your assessment one, what are you going to call it? So we can say arrays for an example for second grade, and it should be the same for both of them. So arrays pre, let's try arrays pre and arrays post. And you want to do the date that you are giving it. So I'm just going to make up today's date. And the post date you could do later. And what team you are. And if you want to put the school, of course you can. And then you're going to input the teachers' names. And the maximum score they can get. So if you're doing a 10 point test, you would put a number here. And what do you want minimum for proficiency? So I would say 7 or 8. So let's do 8. Close to proficiency maybe would be a 7. And then the minimum percentage of students that you want proficient before you move on to the next standard. So I would just say maybe start with something like 75%. At the bottom here, as you can see, this is just your cover page. So down here are different tabs. Your minutes 1 is what you're doing for your first meeting after you've input the data. So you don't need to fill this in yet. Minutes 2 is for the post test. And the graphs will come up after you create all of that. What you do want to do is, I see this is locked, so we can unlock that. I'm not sure how at this point, but I'm going to put teacher 1, and teacher 1 up here, it says Magalano. So this is where I would type in my students' names, and I'm just going to make up some names. You want to use first and last names. And you would go all the way down for how many you have. Now for the pre, let's say out of 10, this is what their scores were to begin with. And as you can see, it automatically calculates it for you over here. Then what you would do is make sure all teachers, so you would sit down together as a team and input this data. Don't do it individually, you'll do it as a team. And then teacher 2, I don't know why it's locked, or even, I'm not sure how to unlock that, to be honest. Let me look. I'll have to figure that out. So teacher 2 would be Rose, and this is where she inputs all her student name. And she would input scores. And then teacher 3. And her scores. And then if you look at the top, it's showing you what the number of proficient or better is for the pre. how many are close to proficient, what the percentage is. And then down here, it's kind of nice. It shows you all those kids' names, which you'll see in the cover page too. So then you go back to your minutes one. This would be after you input all that data. You go back to your minutes one tab, and you can see on here how many of the students have far to go. All those little lines are student names. When it prints out, it should print out all those student names. But you can see that for Magellano's class, there's 33% that are proficient or better. How many students that is, that's 1. But you can see all the students that have far to go, and I believe it should say their names for the other ones too. Here they are. It says the names for each teacher. And then you're going to look at the strengths. So when you sit down with your team, you're going to say, okay, so what did they do well? And you're actually looking at the test that you created, and maybe you see that they were able to add some numbers, you know, from say 0 to 5, I don't know, but they need to add more than, let's say, oh, they need to add 3 digits, and you come up with three of the top strengths and 3 of the top needs, or if you don't have as many strengths, you just, you know, a few of them. And then you create a SMART goal based on that. And it could already be based on what you've already created, your SMART goal. And then you select a strategy. So for arrays, maybe we would create models using clay. And that would be the classroom. And it would be, maybe they can do it in partners. And time, maybe just 10 minutes. Materials, we need clay. And assessments, where will students be required to use this strategy? So maybe they can, they could have it during their performance assessment, if you were to create one. And then adult behaviors, what are you going to do? So this would be model arrays using, oops, make arrays. And if you see that the selected strategy is already there for you, so what are the adult behaviors? What are you going to do to have them be successful? So you can model how to make array models using drawings and clay. The students will use clay to create array models. And what are you going to look for in the student work? We're going to see maybe 5 groups of 2 balls of clay. Okay, and then once you do that, those are the strategies you're going to use for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks. I mean, you can use them longer than that, but the idea is to use it for 2 weeks. Then you go back and you input the data for their post-test. So go to your cover, put in the date. So we're just going to say I'm going to make up a date. I have no idea if this date is even a valid date, but let's just put that in. You go to the teacher, so Magellano, and hopefully students have improved at this point. Okay, so then you go back again to your graphs and you can see where they are and your minutes. I'm sorry, the cover minutes, minutes to, your minutes to. This is where you input your second meeting. So let's say 10, 10, 14. You look at the data, these kids are, how many are proficient or better? How many are close? These are specific kids that you can target during your instructional time. And so now you're meeting and you're looking at it. I don't know why it says grade 3 on here, but the topic would be arrays. This would be second grade. End of unit, we're going to say is 11, 1, 14. The assessment tool is common formative assessment, and the assessment date was 10, 10, 14. Okay, so now you look at it and you fill this in as well. What are your strengths and weaknesses here? And if you found that most of the students, you've met your goal of proficient or better, so we have 67%, our goal was 70%, you would want to start back over at minutes 1 and do another round of this with the intent of reaching that goal. So you could do the same pre-test or leave it as what it was and then just give them a second post-test and use that data. And that would probably be a lot easier on everybody. All right, so that's how you use the data team spreadsheet.